for joining us for the next instalment of Leasehold FAQs from the Property Investor Perspective, which Property Tribes has produced in collaboration with leasehold expert Bernie Wales. And Bernie, today we are going to look at leasehold from the acquisition perspective, and we really want to drill down now, and we have touched on this in other videos actually, but what should landlords consider when thinking of purchasing a leasehold property? There are certain questions that they really do need to ask.
Indeed they do. And the first thing is that you don't listen to the estate agent when they say, come and buy this flat, because you're not buying the flat at all. You are buying a lease which entitles you to use a flat for an awfully long time, 125 years or whatever. So my old catchphrase again is read the lease, okay? That is what you're buying. That is the rule book for that flat and that block of flats, etc. So ask the estate agent, can I please have a copy of the lease? 9 times out of 10, they won't have it. So you have to keep badgering on until you can get that lease. That is vital. It covers everything. Next thing, and the estate agent probably does know this, is, well, what is the lease term? It'll be 99 years from whenever, 125 years from 999, perhaps. So you're not so much interested in the original lease term, you're interested in how many years are unexpired, how much is left. If you're 85 years unexpired or more, no real concerns, I would suggest. If you're in the 80 to 85 year region, you need to look at our FAQs on short leases and lease extensions. And if you're under that 80 years, again, look at lease extensions, etc. So the length of the unexpired term is important. Ground rent is important. That will be in the lease. So read the lease to find out what the ground rent is now and what it will be in the future, because there will be ground rent reviews. How are they worked out? Is it a doubling ground rent every 33 years? Is it linked to retail price index? Is it linked to the market value of the block or whatever? Is it a put your finger in the air, Mr. Landlord, and come up with a number? Read it and find out, because that's going to affect your balance sheet and your profit down the line. Next one, which is important as a landlord, is, are there any restrictions? It may well say in that lease that the flat can only be used for residential purposes, which means you can't use it for Airbnb, serviced accommodation, or anything else that might be construed as a business. It may say residential purposes for one family, which again may restrict the tenants that you could put in there. It may, in some cases, say that actually you cannot underlet, you cannot have tenants. Quite often it will say you cannot have any underletting unless you get permission from the landlord. Permission will be granted, but it costs you money. And it will cost you money every year probably, or every change of AST. So again, that affects your bottom line. So read exactly what that use of the flat is. It's important. Next thing, and this is the one that really takes money out of your pocket, is service charges. Look at what is the current budget for service charges. Again, don't listen to the estate agent, because they normally say, oh, it's £1,200 or so per annum. You know, they snap a nice figure out of the air. You want to see documentation from the managing agents, and that will be this year's service charge budget and the last, I would say, 3 years of service charge accounts. So you can see what the expenses have been over the last few years, see whether it's a steady, sensible rate going up with inflation, or whether you have cheap years and expensive years, etc., in which case the management's not that wonderful. But that's vitally important, because service charges will be a big number and will take out of your pocket almost as much money as your mortgage company will take out. So that's really important. And lastly, I would suggest maybe looking at the management setup of the building. Again, this will be in the lease. Is it a freeholder controlled block with a managing agent? or is it a leaseholder controlled block with a managing agent? It could be that there is a freeholder with a resident management company controlled by leaseholders, and they have a managing agent that deals with the day-to-day. Or it could be that there is a resident freehold company where the leaseholders have in the past bought the freehold and now they control everything. Now, depending upon whether it is freeholder or leaseholder controlled, and depending who that managing agent is, quite often leads to the actual battlefield on the ground, so to speak, and whether this is a good situation or less. So I would suggest download the checklist I've got on my website, the Leasehold Information Checklist. It gives you a whole list of things to go through, but those principal subjects are the ones that people ought to look at most.
No, that's excellent advice, as always, Bernie. And I think perhaps one other thing to ascertain is, if possible, by asking the estate agent or the managing agent or people with local knowledge, is how many other landlords are letting properties in the block, because particularly in these very big new build high-rise blocks, you want a healthy balance between owner occupiers and landlords. You don't want to be in competition with too many other landlords. So that's a consideration as well.
People who buy and live in a flat tend to stay there longer. I don't know what the statistics are, 3 to 5 years or something like that. Whereas tenants are there 6 months, a year, and maybe move on. Certainly they're there shorter. And that affects the management of the building. It affects the flavour of the building, so to speak, and the security and everything else. So you do want a reasonable proportion of owner occupiers, and not too many buy-to-let landlords. Yes, the competition is one I hadn't thought of, but yes, but the owner occupiers have a different financial and emotional tie-in to the building compared to buy-to-let landlords. Buy-to-let landlords are doing it as a business and will look at it as a business. And if you've got too many of them, you may get to the point where everything is done from a business bottom line point of view, and you put off those big projects till tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. Whereas owner occupiers will tend to push more for those redecorations and the lift renewals and this, that, and the other, which cost money, but keep the standards up. You know? And don't shy away from that as a buy-to-let landlord, because if standards are up, rentals will be up, market values will be up, and therefore all your numbers will be up. You know, so whilst it takes more money out of your pocket month on month, long term, a well-managed block is better for you.
Well, I 100% concur, Bernie. And everything that we've said in this video, I hope you found it useful, but actually what it boils down to is read the lease, because that will tell you everything you need to know about the building, the costs involved, as Bernie said, with service charges and ground rents. It will tell you the structure of the management, and it really is such an important document to look at prior to making a buy-to-let acquisition of a leasehold property. And as Bernie mentioned, he does have a free ebook of how to read your lease, which you can download, and we will put the link to that. But for now, Bernie, thank you for this instalment. I'll see you on the next one as our collaboration discussing FAQs for landlords around leasehold property continues.